And to a limited extent, we also benefited from a stimulus in China too, which helped to keep minerals prices higher than they otherwise would have been. But it was mainly down to the actions of the Labour government here at the time. Because we didn't have a major recession, we haven't had a Bernie Sanders. We haven't had a Jeremy Corbyn. For all their faults, they are much closer to your and my view of the world than anything that's on offer in Australia. So anything you could say about the Greens in the US, I can double down on as far as the Australian Greens are concerned. There's no job guarantee as part of the Australian Greens policy platform here. The Australian Greens talk about going mainstream. They talk about the need to have a sustainable fiscal policy, by which they mean balancing the budget on average over time. I put forward an MMT-inspired alternative economic principle, as they've got something called Economic Principle 9, which is at the heart of their economic policy in Australia. The Greens, I put forward an alternative which the South Australian Greens were quite keen on, but the National Greens would have nothing to do with. The National Greens in Australia use policy advisors who are from within the mainstream. So they're nice guys, but they're not going to get anywhere. And actually, if they did get into power in Australia, they disappoint the same way the Australian Labor Party always has, or has for the last 30 years, because basically they're working within the neoclassical, neoliberal mainstream in many ways. This may change in the future. There's some debate and controversy now in the New South Wales Greens in Australia, but we still lack a national political party which is genuinely progressive and isn't a micro party and uses a modern money or functional finance frame in Australia. There's nobody guaranteeing full employment. In Australia, there's nobody guaranteeing a transition to green energy which is quick enough, not even the Australian Greens. So I agree with you, and I say this kind of thing all the time. I might not I might not use Ellis's language, but I agree with Ellis on virtually everything. Do you know what? I do want to tax the rich more. The US economy was much more successful way back in the 50s and the 60s, when you had much higher marginal tax rates on the rich. But I don't want to tax the rich more in order to raise money to pay for government spending. I want to tax the rich more because there are too many ultra-rich people in the US, and it biases your political discourse, and it leads to the kind of politics you have, funded the way it is, with the kind of politicians that you have beholden to these special interests who stand in the way of genuine progressive change anyway. So, sure, tax the rich, but not because you need their money, because you think they're too rich.